It's time for us to welcome in the host of the not DLS, the All City National Hockey Podcast. What chaos! There he is, Pete Blackburn, joining us on the show. Pete, thanks for coming on and gracing the little Dallas Hockey Podcast with your presence.
Of course, thanks for having me. I'm excited that you guys exist because when the Stars were in the playoffs last year and we were getting guests on for basically every team, we were like, who covers the Stars and who can we talk to? So glad you guys are here. Glad you guys are part of the network, and happy to be here.
Well, we were just talking about the Brad Marchand versus Jim Montgomery discussion, and obviously that's been circulating throughout Boston and media and now nationally because of I called it a discussion, the very angry, heated yelling that they did on the bench. But Sean brought up an interesting thing, and by the way, this is the first time we've had 5 guys on the show at one time, so it's chaotic, but we'll do our best. And I really agree with Sean.
Good for the brand.
He feels that Jim Montgomery's been outcoached in the playoffs, starting with Dallas versus St. Louis, which was back in 2019. Do you feel that was a similar situation with the Bruins?
Yeah, I think that he's not great at making adjustments, and I heard a little piece of that conversation. We've seen him be outcoached in terms of guys on the other bench making adjustments. Paul Maurice last year, I think, coached circles around Jim Montgomery in that series, and I don't know if you guys caught the Amazon series, but I thought one of the most interesting parts of that Amazon series when they were following the Panthers around was getting the sound bites from Paul Maurice on the bench. And there was a point during one of those games where he was saying, you guys are so preoccupied with trying to make plays. F the plays. Go out there and grind them into dust. And like that is the style of play that, and like in a vacuum, in regular season play, you're probably not going to hear that much, but during the playoffs, that's what leads to winning hockey. And then over the course of a 7-game series, you grind a team down. And I think the Bruins have had a hard time keeping up with that in terms of, fighting and staying consistent and not being ground down over the course of a 7-game series. So yeah, I think that there are points that we've seen Jim Montgomery fail to make adjustments. And I think that, early on this season, the early returns for the Bruins and what Jim Montgomery's gotten out of that group have not been great. And one of the big consistencies for the Bruins over the past however many years is their leadership. And when you have the head coach and the captain going at each other on the bench during some early season struggles, it throws up some red flags. And I'm not saying it's the end of the world here, but it is a little concerning, and it does throw up an antenna.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, it feels like Montgomery has had drama around him since he came into the league, right? He came in with this great new young coach. He's won national championships with Denver, and then obviously the bad stuff that happened with Dallas. But it just feels like there's constantly been drama around that. Pete, I'm curious your thought. We were just talking about social media and hypersensitivity nowadays, and all these other things. How much of that do you need to just wash away as a player, coach? Elias Pettersson is a perfect example of someone who reads maybe a little bit too much into that. How much of that, if you're a player or coach, do you need to just kind of push away and not look into to get too distracted during seasons?
I think most of it. I think, if you're being distracted by any of the dynamics that go on, whether it's within the locker room, whether it's on the bench, like, there are going to be hard times over the course of an 82-game season. Like, getting yelled at by your coach or having a player yell at a coach is not a problem in of itself if it happens a few times here and there. If it continuously pops up over and over and over again, that's when it sort of erodes the relationship between the players, between the coaches, and things like that. Like, Bruce Cassidy is a very good coach. He won a Stanley Cup a year after he left Boston, and his numbers were good in Boston in terms of win-loss record, but he was pushed out the door because the players grew sick of playing for him, grew sick of how hard he was on them, and how often they butted heads. And that's why Jim Montgomery was brought in, because he's a little bit easier on his players. He was a players coach. I think that we've seen over the past 2 seasons, like, he's been like not easy on these guys. He doesn't let them coast by, but he's he's more of a player's coach than Bruce Cassidy was, and I think that it led to a real change of tempo and changes like success that they saw over the past few seasons during the regular season at least. But now you're seeing some heads being butted on the bench, and the results haven't been there in the early season. So it's an interesting thing to keep an eye on. I don't think the Bruins are as bad as they've looked to start this season, but you never know. Like if there's something under the surface there, it could get ugly.
One more for me. If the Bruins either lose in the first round or don't make the playoffs this season, is Jim Montgomery the coach next October?
Probably not. I think that this team on paper is too good to either miss the playoffs, first of all, or I just think that there's a real distaste for the early exits that the Bruins have had. And you look at this team right now, it's not really built for like longevity. They're trying to keep this window open with like Brad Marchand and some of the guys they have here, and like you can't waste away years of Pastrnak and McAvoy. So like there's a sense of urgency. And if it doesn't happen and they don't take a step forward this year, I think you're probably looking at a new coach next season.
Hey, Pete, we've it's fitting that with Dallas Boston this week because obviously Jake Ottinger gets basically the Swayman money after that deal gets done. I think you've actually had some of the best conversations anyone's ever had with his former goalie partner on your guys' show with Linus Ullmark before. From your view of where things go with Swayman this season, we've talked a lot about Ottinger and what he has to do, but what does Swayman have to do this year to live up to all of the actions that played out? You think for, well, whether it's the fan base, whether it's the proper, what's your view of that?
He kind of has to be bulletproof in a lot of ways. Like that's not going to be forgotten how ugly the negotiations were this summer and how they carried it over this year. Like I don't think that he's going to be like overly criticized, and I don't know where a lot of fans land versus management versus player in that situation, but we've seen for like a decade plus at this point, the first person that Bruins fans typically go for in terms of a target is the goaltender, even if the goaltender is very good. Like Tuukka Rask was really, really good for the Bruins for a lot of years and was really good for most of his time in the playoffs. But anytime the Bruins lost, no matter when it was usually Tuukka Rask's fault in the eye of the public. And I think part of that is steered by the media. And I think that part of it is just it's an easy thing to do is blame the goaltender because he's the last line of defense in hockey. So with what happened with Jeremy Swayman this summer and kind of where this team is positioned right now, like he has to be the best player on this team. Number one, for them to be considered a true contender anyway, but also for his own protection. He's got to be the best player basically every night.
And then one more, because for me on that, just because as we're talking on these two guys, and we had a whole show, we did a whole emergency, we scheduled a whole emergency podcast when they signed Ottinger and got all that done. For someone who looks at it and not with a Stars lens every day, you see that deal for Ottinger. What was your initial reaction to that?
Well, I think the easy thing to do is say, would you rather have Jeremy Swayman? Would you rather have Jake Ottinger? And I think they're both very, very good goaltenders that I would be quite happy if they were on my team for the next 8+ years. Based off of what I've seen in terms of consistency over the past few years, I think that I'd feel a little bit more comfortable with Jeremy Swayman, but it's real close. And I think Ottinger is a dog, and we've seen it from him at many points where he can be a guy that is a true game changer. I just don't think it's there as consistently as it's been with Jeremy Swayman for the most part. But then again, Jeremy Swayman hasn't had the workload that Jake Ottinger's had in terms of being like the 1A over the past few years. So if that changes anything for Swayman, maybe. I just don't think it does. I think it's a good situation for both teams. It's a good situation for both players. I might give the slight edge to Jeremy Swayman, but I'm a biased take here anyway. So I'm sure that a lot of Stars fans will point the finger and just say, yeah, of course you'd say that.
Hey, Pete, since we're talking about your goaltender there, I'm curious about your thoughts on how the negotiations went, in particular when Cam Neely came out with his comment.
I think it could have been handled much better on both sides. I think that there was growing frustrations from Jeremy Swayman's camp. I think that had to do with the disrespect that he perceived going on, even from the year prior. And then I think that Cam Neely got sick of it being a chess match with the media and how public some of those comments were from Swayman and from Spit and Chicklets and other media sources. I think he just got sick of having to play that game, and he brought his final chips to the table in that press conference. And it all ended up working out fine. I just think that it could have been handled a little bit more maturely on both sides. Like, Swayman took things very personally, probably a little bit too personally, and I think that the Bruins ended up pulling the unprofessional card by bringing it to the media when they got sick of it. But it was real ugly, and at the end, I'll tell you what, being honest, I was very nervous that it was going to be at a point where it was irreparable.
So, as you can tell, Pete, our producer John likes to bring up on the tag at the lower third, Short King. Luddy started having us chirp Sam a lot for the same vertical deficiencies, if you will. And we have a player on the Stars that is really dazzling without being the biggest player on the ice. And I'm going to talk about Logan Stankoven. And so I was told that we should just chirp you and Logan as asking, when you talk to a guy like Stankoven, do you enjoy being eye to eye, which seems like really low-hanging fruit, which again was an unnecessary joke there. But we are just, I don't want to say bedazzled by Stankoven, but impressed by the fact that he's so consistent, that he comes and plays the same way every single night, which is really a challenge in the NHL, right? A lot of really good AHL players never make it to the NHL consistently because they can't bring not their A game every night, but their B or B minus game. They drop down into that C or D range. And Stankoven just doesn't do that. We all think in Dallas, because we're a bunch of ridiculous homers, that he's going to win the Calder Trophy this year. From your standpoint, not just from a height, but actually the player, what do you think of Logan?
Yeah, I love him. I love him. He's my Calder pick. I locked that in before the season, and there's a few reasons for it. I don't think that he's necessarily the most talented player of this Calder class, but number one, he has a little bit more experience than a lot of these guys, where he came in and he got playoff hockey too, which I think is really, really important, and he's sort of ingrained himself into that Stars culture. They also have a really good team there, and I think he has an opportunity to stack points, as we've seen in the early returns here. But the thing that really, really impressed me, beyond, like, I'll always root for the short guys. It's always going to happen. But the thing that really impressed me about him when he came in last year is that even in his first two games, he was getting to the dirty areas and he was setting up shop in front of the net. So for a guy who's like 5'7", 5'8", whatever he's listed at, he's probably fudging the numbers there a little bit if we're being honest, but like, he's not afraid. He doesn't look at it at his size as like a true deficiency. It doesn't keep him from those areas where he needs to go to find success. He's also really strong on the puck in those tight areas and in down low. And so, like, he may be short, but he doesn't exactly play like it all the time. So I think with all of those things being combined, he's really well positioned this year to make an immediate impact in his Calder season, which doesn't truly feel like his rookie season.
Sean, I'm going to let you take this over, but just briefly, the NHL show that Pete hosts, which is the All City National What Chaos Show, has a new line of merch that actually has a connection with Sean. So you know more, so you take it away.
Oh, with my boys Nick and Matt up in Buffalo at Just Edition. Yeah, Actually, quick side note, Pete, I'm sorry to do this to you, but Pete and I, Pete, I was a live viewer of Pete and Cam Robinson's side by side podcast at the draft in Vegas, which was maybe the greatest height difference in podcasting history at that point. Now, for people who don't know, Cam is like 6'7", and right now we're planning on stuff for having him stand next to prospects to find out if they're actually tall or not.
I did that at the draft as well. The Bruins drafted Dean Letourneau, famously very tall, and he confirmed standing next to me. So, by the way, the Cam Robinson thing has since been dated because we did a podcast with Nikita Zadorov in preseason, and the pictures that came out of me sitting next to him were ridiculous. He is a gigantic human.
I guess this is an ad read, but check out the pretty cool collaboration between the guys over at Dish and What Chaos. Nick and Matt have been. I think a lot of times we use the word, and Pete, you can agree or disagree with me, but a lot of times we use like the mover and shakers word too loosely. But like what Nick and Matt do actually is they actually get where this world is going and everything. So they've got some pretty cool stuff that they put together with you guys, and I think you guys got the. Yeah, pretty cool stuff. And then did you get the model though? Because like that was the best part. Like that's
I don't know, but the one with the chains is for me.
Yeah, it's let's.
Yeah, I know, but I know, but Pete, like this is just the shirt. The actual modeling by
Gene.
Actually having the people by Gene Principe do it. It was like that was the real kicker for me. So I'm disappointed that John didn't pull that one. So but oh well, we can't win them all.
Yeah, just check out our lookbook. We have a lookbook with Dean Principe. All the stuff came out great, so I'm really happy with it. And Nick and Matt and Derek, who designed this line, they're incredible dudes, and they definitely have an eye and a feel for where things are going and trending. So very, very happy with the way things turned out. With
Pete, real quick, go ahead, Sean.
I was going to say I really hurt Nick's wallet because I hung out with him in Cleveland this summer at a trading card show, and he had completely gotten out of it completely, and now he spends hundreds of dollars all the time on hockey cards. So that's my fault for Nick now. So
there you go.
Yeah, go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, Pete,
more important.
We've talked about the show a little bit. We talked about the new partnership. Can you just a quick summary, 1 minute or however long you want to talk about it? What is the What Chaos show, and why should people of DLS and all around the NHL listen to the show?
What Chaos is, we do the league-wide show. We like to have fun. We like to shine a little bit of personality on the game. We're weird, and we like to approach things in a weirder way, a looser way. Last night we did game reports on some of the games in the Frozen Frenzy, and we did like middle school style presentations on some of the things that we learned. Like that's just a taste of the weird crap that we do. And then probably a big staple of the show is the interviews that we have with players, in which we try to get a sense of their personality and have some fun. Logan Stankoven on the show, we had some fun with him. So if Stars fans are interested in that, they can go to our YouTube page, and all the interviews are there. So like if you're a little weird, a little down to have some fun, and you love hockey, we're the show for you.
Well, Pete, thanks so much for stopping in
Hey,
today.
by the way, I just ordered my shirt.
You ordered a shirt?
I ordered the shirt.
Which
Look
shirt?
at that.
The ones with the chains around it.
Let's go. Wow. I love to see it.
I just ordered it.
And he will wear it on our show. So keep an eye out for Luddy once that gets in. Hopefully it comes in fast.
Hopefully the double X is a true double X, not like around here.
They're oversized. So
okay, cool.
If you think they need to be,
because everybody around here is undersized.
I mean, I'm definitely undersized.
I didn't. I mean these guys up here on
the jokes just write themselves, don't they?
I know.
Yeah.
Everything's
unfortunately,
oversized.
we got to go to the last break here, but thank you so much. We appreciate you jumping on, and we'll see whether or not our producer is happy or miserable based on tomorrow night's result.
Sounds good. Enjoy. I hope you guys are a little miserable tomorrow.